Hello and welcome to Author Showcase, a show where we interview authors that have a connection to Wisconsin. I'm Tom Cannon. I was the Poet Laureate of Oshkosh here. I'm also a writer and a member of the writing community here in Oshkosh with the Oshkosh Area Writers Club, Lakefly Writers Conference. Today, I'm solo hosting. Dixie's running the controls, and Bill's on assignment. In other words, he's just not here. It's my great honor today to introduce to you the person we're interviewing today, Emilie Lindemann. She's the author of Mother-Mailbox, as well as other chapbooks, including Capsule Wardrobe for the End of the World. She holds a PhD in English and Creative Writing for UW-Oshkosh and teaches writing and communication courses at Lakeshore College. And today she has a book out, so that's what we're going to be talking to her mostly about today, is her chapbook, Ghosted Woman and the Electric Purple Pants.
Well, thanks so much. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, welcome. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Well, I grew up in the Manitowoc area, and I have a PhD from UW-Milwaukee, actually. Oh. And I've been teaching college for a while. My first full-time job was at Silver Lake College in Manitowoc. That closed for good in 2020. And then I currently teach at Lakeshore College, teach writing classes and communication courses as well. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I was really inspired by the world around me in my writing.
You can see that. And part of the start of this book was kind of the pandemic and things like that. Just tell us a little bit about how your book came to be.
Right. So when the college I worked at closed for good, like it was announced via email, and I immediately sprung into action, tried looking for other work, looking for other teaching jobs, and was able to find 2 adjunct or part-time roles at the beginning of that, and just spent a lot of time feeling really stuck and kind of frozen. And other people I knew they were writing new work and going to Zoom workshops and kind of networking, and I just felt really stuck. And then when I was teaching at one of the adjunct roles, it was in person, so I would I kind of felt like a time traveler. I would walk through the campus and fashion had changed suddenly, it seemed and I was just kind of nervously pacing the campus, kind of observing the trees and feeling like a ghost, because during that time it was wasn't feeling connected to other faculty members, and just kind of started writing these poems as a way to kind of to deal with it and to kind of entertain myself in a way.
And I think that's that's important, a time in your life, and you're writing specifically about that, but you do it in a way it's universal. Everybody else has been through times of turmoil and things not going the way that you have planned out. Yeah. And also just writing isn't okay. I'm going to write 1,500 words today and then finish it off, and there's ups and downs, and so poetry was helpful in that and kind of processing.
Yeah, so I think I started with some of the poems in the beginning where there's this ghosted woman character is wandering around the library, and she's kind of me, she's the socially awkward adjunct instructor, but she's kind of not me, so she's wandering around campus in her light pink coat and imagining crawling into a library storage space. So yeah, that's how it started, just this series. I often work in a series like that, and it sort of evolved from there, and it was something, I'm not sure if I planned to write a chapbook, but I just kept going, and there were poems that seemed to fit with it.
So you were just writing poems, and then all of a sudden these can be collected together into one collection.
Yeah, the Ghosted Woman one started suggesting a narrative, and then had some other dreamscape poems, were moments in my daily life where I was spending more time in nature, and suddenly it felt oh, this feels so unreal, and And then other poems have more of a time travel theme, not necessarily like in a sci-fi way, more in a way of feeling, I don't know, like I would run into former coworkers at the grocery store and feel like, oh wow, we both ended up in the same timeline. It just felt odd.
Yeah, to me, it kind of like the poems, like the setting jumps, kind of like all of a sudden you start out in nature, and then you start to include, you know, the inside of a room and stuff. You know, specifically even just one of the poems where you talk about finding a smooth stone and then taking it inside and having it by your desk and kind of literally bringing nature. And there's other times I think where, like you're walking among the leaves and then you're walking down a hallway. And so sense of place was pretty important. And talk a little bit about the clothing aspect of it. You know, the girl in the woman in the electric purple pants.
Yeah.
That's very prominent, and even your dedication.
Oh, sure.
You know, for those who feel most seen and most like themselves wearing an unusual piece of clothing or accessories.
Yeah, I think I don't necessarily do it on purpose, but clothing sometimes will show up in my poetry, like the ghosted woman character. She's wandering around campus in her pink wool coat, and then near the end there's this moment where in real life I kind of like dared myself to, okay, just go for it, wear this bold pair of like magenta purple pants for my in-person adjunct role one day when I was teaching, because I would wander the campus feeling like, am I still here? Like, can people see me? Like, yeah, I think in my classroom, yeah, my students could. But yeah, I think just kind of as a dare to the self and as a way to feel like I'm
actually
still
to teach
here.
the class?
Yeah, they're just like a bold pair of wide leg magenta pants with a normal shirt, and yeah.
Brave.
Yeah.
But very interesting. And it made me definitely think about that, how clothing does make up a lot of people's personas, whether they're trying to hide it, whether they're trying to showcase it. And, you know, whether it's a woman or a guy, even if guys say they don't care, they dress like they don't care, it still makes an impression. They're still worried about what they're wearing or their lack of choosing what to wear.
Yeah, and it can change how you feel about yourself, and I'm kind of intrigued in like the self-expression element too.
So let's go ahead and let's have you read one of your poems and let the listeners hear.
This one is Ghosted Woman with Library Caramels. The woman in the pink wool coat says no one hears the crinkles of her library caramels, or her bootsteps on the concrete of the echoey pavilion before the woods. If you listened to her pockets, you'd hear phantom pens etching desperate adjunct instructor notes in polyester lining. If you can see me, she whispers, holding out a caramel with a cream center. Or is it an acorn?
Very nice, yes.
Thanks.
Again, whether it's an acorn or it's a caramel wrapper.
Yeah, who knows?
Kind of combining the two. And again, you get the inside and out, and just so many sensory stuff. The sound and the crinkle, and the people walking on the the concrete. I don't know if it was concrete, but walking definitely. How do you include all that? How do you make sure that you're including those sensories, all the senses, the sound, and the?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I've just spend so much time kind of like observing the world. Like when I'm, writing in my notebook, I'm not like intending to write poems at first, but just jotting down observations. So it's just kind of paying attention to like the sounds of sandhill cranes and other things. But I think through the revision process, I'll often have a lot of fun with that, where I print out the poem and just sort of like look at like, just kind of experiment with the sensory detail, or even just like if I'm typing, going from like journal to notebook and starting to type it up, I will like maybe just be like, how else can I imagine this poem, and experiment that way.
So why don't you let people know where they can find at least this chapbook?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's published by Freshwater Press, which is a newer press based in Two Rivers, Wisconsin. And this year they released my chapbook and as well as two other books that are forthcoming. And it's also, so it's available online through the press and through local bookstores in the Manitowoc and nearby area.
So did you just find them by submitting manuscripts, querying?
Yeah, that's a good question. I had submitted the chapbook to other presses, earlier versions of the chapbook, and had gotten some good feedback. I feel like as a writer, any kind of like encouraging rejection is a good thing.
Yes.
But then was aware of Freshwater Press and saw that they had an open call for submissions that people could send the first like 20 pages of their project along with kind of a description, and then was really stunned and like pleasantly surprised to hear back from them in January of this year. And the three publishers, editors, they just take so much care with their projects, and so I feel super lucky to work with them.
Yes, I mean I think they're just very motivated. They're very enthusiastic and spirited about getting this off the ground, and I think that Wisconsin needs a couple more presses, and it just seems like Manitowoc is a great area to support the arts.
Yeah, I feel like it's becoming more and more so. Like our local bookstores have readings often, and I feel like there's like a growing scene of readers and writers. And
I went to one of the Freshwater's open mics on a Thursday at a little bookstore called The Nook, right? And it was just filled to the brim.
Yeah.
And it's just, so it's nice to see people out there engaging in poetry. Why don't you give people some advice, some inspiring poets, like how to get started, how to write, and
I feel like how to get started, like just be really curious about other poets and their techniques. I've found a lot of inspiration through Wisconsin poet Lorene Niedecker, who lived until 1970. Her work deals a lot with the sense of place, and she pays a lot of attention to sound in her work. So just reading other poets and also like contemporary poets as well to see their different techniques and how they approach writing poems like in a book form. I think that's really valuable to see how other people approach poems as a series and how they structure their collections. And I would say also being curious about your own writing. So being willing to experiment and say, well, what else could this poem look like? What if I made it a prose poem? Or what if I did something really different with line breaks, and just be open to experimenting.
How did you figure out where you wanted the poem, which poem in the beginning, which poem after this poem?
I really enjoyed that part of the process. So there's a poem in the beginning that I thought would introduce readers to the main character, and then even when there were poems that are like very closely related, I have some together and some are, but wanted to also like break that up a little bit with some of the dreamscape poems that do a little bit different things, and then wanted, really had a clear idea where I wanted the book to end. It's like a final poem that has Ghosted Woman where she is now, kind of thinking back to earlier that year when she was really struggling. So I really wanted the series to tell a story. Maybe not tell a story, but suggest an experience or create an experience.
Yeah, I once put together a collection for a friend of mine. He had several poems, and it's amazing how actually fun it is, and like these go together, and then it should go from this to this to this, so that you are telling a story.
And I think sometimes even to print out like a draft and like to like mix those pages around on the floor and see where things land. So
did you do that? Are you kind of analog, or you want to print it out?
Sometimes I am, I kind of go back and forth where I'm working with this Word document or multiple ones, but I feel like the greatest pandemic investment for me was a printer at home so that I can like print things and then work with that.
Yeah, there is a little bit difference to seeing it on the paper and being printed.
Yeah.
And so earlier we put up some of your social media things, where to find you on Instagram and stuff. If somebody goes there, what are they gonna find there?
Oh, well, something I've experimented with this chapbook coming out is I haven't done a lot of reels or like short form video before, but it's something I'm like slowly curious about. So I've created a few reels that kind of present some of these poems, like with me having voiceover and some like original footage, some photos thrown in. And one of the reels, my sister, a songwriter, helped me create for one of my like really short poems. That she heard the poem and then had this vision and said, "Let's go to the lake. Let's film this. Let's see what we can do."
Music would definitely set it apart.
Yeah.
And so are you available to like hold workshops and go out in the community and maybe just do some readings?
Yeah, I really enjoy reading my work and also leading workshops through Freshwater Press. We're actually going to have something at a local nature center, a workshop that I'm leading, and yeah, so I really enjoy like the teaching side of it. In addition to writing.
Excellent. So what advice would you give to somebody who's trying to find time to write that poem, and like maybe how much time would you going to spend on editing your poems?
It's almost like stealing time, like whenever you can. So I teach full time and have a son, and like we all have other people always have other obligations. So just like even if it's for me, like doing some journaling in the evening, and then when I'm ready, like when I do have the time to kind of like almost mine that journal to find snippets that would like I'll even like star or underline things and come back to it when I do have the time to shape it into poems. And I would say there's even though it's time consuming with the revision and editing, there's joy in that to see, how is this poem evolving? Like you come back to it and you realize like, the poem should actually start like at a different space, at a different point.
Where you're pruning it and sharpening it and finding out. I find that with journaling, like I find myself actually kind of starting it like writing in like lines, almost like like writing in a poem, which, and there's something, so there's probably a good idea for people that are busy and want to start up writing and don't have the time. You have to spend a lot of time with poetry, right?
Yeah.
But it's something where a line strikes you, you can just type it out on your phone or write it in your journal.
So you work with the line breaks like during the journaling
process.
Yes,
yes. Of course, it'll change later.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. A lot of your poems talk about being in nature, and I like towards the end, fragments while biking and being mistaken for a clover, and a couple other where it's like you're talking about nature. And there's so many nature poems. There's no shortage of poems that write about nature. But you want to get the perfect image, the great, see what you saw and kind of savor it and display it. But then you also make sure to go back and what is the significance about that? What's the impact on you as the writer, and then hopefully has an impact on the reader. So there's what's the significance? Go back and what's the significance of this? And
should I read this fragments?
Yes, that'd be great.
And this one is really interesting because I feel like editor Peggy Turnbull of Freshwater, like she played a big role with this. Was kind of like the lines are longer and like almost prosy, and she played a big role, being like, but we were also thinking about, even though it's very prosy, like there are line breaks, and so that changed. But let me read it. Fragments while biking and being mistaken for a clover. The Queen Anne's lace and chicory are ushering her down the road. She's flying via bicycle again, standing up and coasting. Later, there will be a half moon visible in the still light sky, a jarringly orange monarch flattened beneath the stop sign. She breaks squeakily. Every summer, new poems that smell of freshwater waves and wild raspberries. Something pilfers her courage before she can properly dust these words. At the far end of her rural road, there's a stream on one side, an expansive pond on the other, primroses and June, a turtle on the side of the road now and then, a cigarette carton that someone has discarded. Without trying to be beautiful, a lone pelican pauses. She's tired of trying to be beautiful. Everything feels watched and counted. For months, she gleefully left her purple Fitbit stagnant on the kitchen counter. No one has bothered to count such tiny toads in the early July grass. Savoring almond croissants all winter and spring, she never worried about getting lost in the intricacies of Queen Anne's lace. That July, the lilies had already opened. How it feels to inhale rosemary or grapefruit from those tiny bottles at the salon, the exact hue of the tiger lilies at her grandmother's house. Lake Michigan at Point Creek, all those stones under her feet, and how she once swam to the silky sandbar. She doesn't want to lose this feeling. Writing in bed, listening to distant fireworks, she's a pelican or a tiny toad. The next day, biking again in green yoga pants and a pinkish top, a monarch flies between her elbow and torso, mistaking her for the clover she truly is. And I think about that a lot recently because there is a lot of clover on the road right now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good reminder. And that's what I'm talking about. Where you go beyond, okay, that's monarch mistaking her for a clover. It's still kind of factual that she is. You know, how poetry, the power, that's kind of the power of poetry where it can so easily make something that really can't be. You know, like also the summer poems smelling like the freshwater waves.
Oh yeah.
You know, so it makes an impact. You know, by putting those two contrasting things together, it makes it work.
Yeah, and sometimes it kind of happens by accident, but then during revision, maybe making it more purposeful. So I was just thinking, oh, I'm kind of dressed like a clover, and here's this butterfly. But maybe through the line breaks and the images making it, I don't know, connect with other people who might have felt the same way, kind of like misunderstood or you know, during that time period specifically just sort of ghosted, but then feeling recognized in nature. I'm sure lots of people find comfort.
And then again, the kind of, are you inside or are you outside?
Oh, right.
You're definitely outside.
Yeah.
But then, you know, you're inhaling rosemary, and then you're tiny bottles at the saloon, then you're back at the Tiger Lilies, but you're grandma's house.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and I, you know, something that interests me is doing that with time as well, like kind of in certain poems going back and forth, or there's one poem that even, you know, thinking about what that space was in the past.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
The history of it. Often in our interviews, we ask people, like, what's their current project?
Oh, yeah.
And you are actually having another book come out through Freshwater Press?
No, let me clarify what I said earlier. There's two other authors who have books coming out this year. One is a nonfiction book, and the other is a novel. But for me, I don't have, you know, I have something I'm working on. In the past, you know, I've done some collaborations. Sometimes I'm working on some poems that respond to or are in dialogue with the paintings by Karen Lawton, who's an artist based in Madison. We don't know right now if it's going to be, will it take the shape of a book or will it be more of an exhibit with the poetry and poems? But that's what I'm currently working on. And
how did that collaboration come about?
Yeah, that was a really cool process. Karen and I actually collaborated, I want to say like 10 years ago. We're both really interested in Wisconsin poet Lori Niedecker. Her paintings respond to her work, and our paths crossed at I think I was giving a talk, and we ended up collaborating on some work back then, and then have kept in touch over the years. And I last year wrote some poems in response to her series of paintings called Rupture. And so, yeah, I think even though like she lives in Madison, I'm in the Manitowoc area, it's been really rewarding to have that dialogue.
And there's a term for that, right? And I can't think of what it is.
Are you thinking of ekphrastic poetry?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. I think it's, yeah, is that something you've done a lot of too? Or
I think it's kind of big. I know that the poet laureate of Appleton, Kat Kofel, is kind of into that. And really the time I experimented that was part of the Wisconsin Fellowship of Poets, and they have open mics at Akoka Coffee Shop on downtown Appleton. And we just go up there and read their poems and stuff. And behind us were portraits, not portraits, but paintings by area painters and stuff. And Mike, one of the people, I think he is the vice president or the treasurer, he was like, look at these. We should write a poem about this. And so I picked out a painting about a kid that was he was in a baseball uniform.
Okay.
And he was kind of an awkward kid. I can imagine him being somebody, that not typical. And so I wrote a poem on that. And that was really inspiring, and it's like just that painting and what it makes you, how it made me feel, and how paintings can make different people feel, and it was, I think it's a very special thing, especially since a couple months later, the owner of Akoka got up and he said, I told the mother of the artist. That we all wrote poems about that, and then she said, "That's my daughter," and he said, "That's her daughter, and her daughter had passed away." So it was very moving.
Really?
I mean, and he was choked up, and we were too. That her painting went on to inspire people to write a poem about it.
Yeah, I always find it very interesting. It's like you're almost, it's kind of like shifts you out of your perspective or your typical way of writing, but yet you are bringing your perspective to that response.
Yeah, I don't know. I might just be too selfish. I don't want to discuss I want to discuss my thoughts and my piece of work. I don't want to. Let's not deal with your art, but I'll have to take another look at that, because that was a very well spent time, I would think. And so, how does that work back and forth with living in different cities with?
Yeah, I think that can be cool, because then we're sending emails to each other like, oh, have you here are some new poems, or she will send me like images of her paintings, and then like occasionally meeting up at a cafe to really talk about like, oh, what's our direction for this project. Yeah, there's something about that collaboration where you have this built-in audience, and you're kind of like in this together that I really like.
Do you get her input, or is it all your response to the paintings?
There will be some dialogue. I don't think she would necessarily offer like critique or direction of my poems, but more so like, I don't know, like looking, her, she might create a painting that responds, and then that will point me in a different direction, and so it's more of a back and forth.
Hopefully you guys can maybe do both, a book and an exhibit.
We'll see, yeah. And I kind of like the unknown when I'm starting to work on a project. I usually don't always know like, oh, this is going to be a chapbook, or this is going to be an exhibit. I like that unknown, like let's see where this goes. So, what would your perfect day of writing be? Like, would you write in the morning? Would you, do you ever find time to actually set out a big stretch of time to write? Yeah, I'm definitely a morning person. So my, my perfect day. Like I take my border collie for a walk and just being in nature. And yeah, I sometimes have like larger stretches of time where I'm like, okay, the semester is done. I'm like really, I know I have some poems in the works. I'm like really going to sit down and do this. But to be honest, I tend to work in smaller smaller like spurts of time, but just like keep coming back to the project. Oh, what about for you? Is it like, larger stretches of time?
It's typically, like you said, little bits of time when I can and things like that. And I do try to do, especially on the weekends, do longer stretches of time. But I think, and there's some value to that, to setting out that time, I think, where you kind of get into it, but I guess I get a little antsy and my back gets a little sore and it's just like, okay, I need a break. But maybe I should be doing what you're doing, because that's advice I think people often say is, take a walk, because that definitely gets your creative juices going, and nature does too. And so to walk in nature, you're definitely gonna be inspired, I think.
Yeah. It's weird. I said I'm a morning person, and I think that's when I would definitely work on a poem, but I tend to do my journaling and observations in the evening when I'm kind of reflecting back on my day, and those small things I heard or smelled even can lead to a poem.
And that's probably good as well. I am also kind of try to, I don't usually end up journaling at night. There's Kelly Dunham, who is an author and a comic out in New York, and I attended one of her workshops, and she talked about, write down, journal, make it what made this day different.
Oh, cool.
And I find that definitely inspirational, where you're picking out stuff so that you can see the different individual days better, but I find myself kind of reminding myself the next day, this is what happened yesterday and stuff. Probably better to write it more raw, but whatever works for people, just get her done. So why don't you go ahead and read us one more poem?
Okay.
I'll do that.
All right, how about, inspired by that time travel scene in Lucy, you retrace your steps to find a blue heron. You were moving too quickly and skipped a page, skipped over a whole forest, the soggy log for sitting with the mossy footrest and all, flew past the room with all your favorite things, even the high-heeled booties you bought and never wore in public. What kind of occasion would call for sitting whimsically on a bar stool, swooping in for a Blue Lagoon martini, and then getting your left heel stuck in the staircase grating? Swipe back to the woods, pan over to a patch of water, green in another season. A blue heron stands there, maybe in your suede boots, a reflection pooling in that lime green place you almost didn't see.
Very nice.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. And again, I still see that inside and outside, and I think that's kind of important, especially for a chapbook, I think. But overall, poets have themes and things that they keep connecting with and touching on, and finding different nuances to that.
Maybe that's another piece of advice. If you have interests, no matter how quirky, just kind of go with that and bring that into your writing.
Quirky's bad. Yeah, definitely quirky. And angles. Take the time to, and the risk to be yourself, and pick that out so that you stand out. And and at the same time you do that, you're also kind of being more universal. The reader's not going to do the same experience, but you're being honest about the feelings. They're going to feel that and then apply it to their own situation. Don't you think so?
I feel like that's what makes it all worth it, to be able to connect.
Yes, for the readers to. So if somebody look at your poem and hear your poetry, and tell me a little bit. I see that you got a little blurb, an endorsement by C. Cabasta and C.H. Delahunt. And Cabasta, I just know that name from Wisconsin Fellowship of Poets.
Definitely.
How did you?
Yeah, well, I think she has, a couple of my poems have appeared in issues of Bramble Literary Magazine, and that she has been the editor of. So she, I think one of the poems in here that's shaped like a clover. So yeah, that's how we connected, like in her role as editor, and then we've kind of kept in touch by email, and I've like read her recent work as well, and kind of followed along to see her writing journey. And C.X. Delahunt is the editor of Hummingbird Magazine of the short poem, and one of the shortest poem in here was published in that, and I've been a reader and contributor to that publication over the years.
Yeah, it just made me, it's a kind of obvious statement, but you can't, people can't see your poetry if you're not out there and getting it into
that's
journals,
so true.
And they have to see it to appreciate it, and then that leads to opportunities, correct?
Yeah, yep, so true.
Okay. Do you have any closing words or things you'd like to leave your readers with, thoughts that leave your readers with?
Yeah, I would say keep experimenting and just trying different things with your writing, and continue to be curious about what other people are creating and what their approaches are like.
Excellent. Great advice. So you've been watching Author Showcase. We welcome any input or questions that you have, and you can do that on social media. Dixie Jarko and or me, Tom Cannon. We're on Facebook. You can email us at authorshowcaseofwisconsin@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching today, and thank you, Emily.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to Author Showcase of Oshkosh with your hosts, Dixie Jo Jarko, Bill Gillard, and Thomas Cannon. We'd love to hear from you, whether you're interested in being a guest on the show, have a question, or want to share your thoughts. Please reach out to us on social media or via email at oshkoshauthorshowcase@gmail.com.